Hi guys. Today our topic is going to be the cache cache memories. In early 1980s, we don't have the concept of the cache memories, but the processor technologies was always improving. When it comes to the memory systems that are associated with the processor, we don't have any efficient memory system that provides the data required by the processor as soon, I mean, in the same speed as the processor requires. So, for example, you have a processor, you have a core, you have a core and a memory system. When your core is needed some data from the memory system, if your processor is always with some maximum speed, with a good speed, and with good processing speed, the memory has also have to be with the same speed so as to provide the data that is required by the processor, which should not be again affecting the execution of the processor. So this is where it was lacking from 1980s. So coming to 1995, the cache memory concepts have been introduced, and the memories have been kept in an hierarchical path. So we are going to discuss it in later slides. Okay, this is where the concept of the cache memory is going to be uh, understood. Okay, uh, so from your graduate level, you would have seen many processors like 8085 or 8086. So they are having their own internal registers like general purpose registers, program counters, stack pointers. So all these 8-bit registers or 16-bit registers. Okay, so when the processor have to do some ALU operations upon these general purpose registers or any other register, it is being done very fast because all these registers are internal and they are local to the processor, so they are very fast. Okay, so whatever the data, the instruction or the corresponding data that the processor requires for for these operations, it have to get it from somewhere else, right, from some memories outside the processor. So which is again going to consume some time because they are not internal to the processor, they are outside the boundary of the processor. Okay, this is going to have consume some time, right? So as the processor is working very much faster, but if the memory is not going to work in the same way as the processor works, it is going to affect the processor executions, right? So this is what the problem of normal memories. So when we get into the cache memories, considering some basic processor pipeline. So we have I'm not going to discuss about what is pipeline and all, but we'll have some brief about it. So pipeline in the sense which makes the instructions to be processed parallelly. Okay, it's not like the processor is going to process one instruction and then later it is going to the second instruction. It's not like that. But in a pipeline stage, in a pipeline structure, the instructions are going to be executed parallelly. Okay, so for example, I'll give you an example. For example, you have a washing machine and you have a dryer. Okay, and now you have some uh, A, B, C, D. So you have four set of cloths A, B, C, D. Okay, now for example, A is going to wash his clothes using the washing machine, and then later these clothes are kept into the dryer. Okay, now B have to wash its clothes. If it is a non-pipeline structure, we have to the B have to wait until the A washes its clothes and dries its clothes, right? We have to wait until A completes its work. But when you come to a pipeline structure, as soon as the clothes are being shifted to the dryer, washing machine is going to be idle, right? Now your B is going to occupy this washing machine. Okay, it means that they are working parallelly. right? So now your cloths of A are in the dryer, your cloths of B are in the washing machine. Once A finishes its dryer work, it goes out, and B takes the dryer, and C is going to take the washing machine. Again, when B completes the dryer, C comes to the dryer and D goes to the washing machine. So this is how a pipeline structure works. I have just given you a basic example of how the pipeline is going to work. So which is not, again, it should not affect the execution of the processor, right? So it should not be late for processing all the instructions. So that is why we go to the pipeline structure. So in a pipeline structure, we have different stages, like execution, like instruction fetch, instruction decode, data fetch, and execution, or a load or store operations to the memory. So we have all these. So when you take some processor internal works, like these ALU operations, as we have discussed before, those will be done very fast. But when coming to the memory load or store operations, that is going to take time. So which are also a part of these pipeline stages, right? So this is where we are going to the concept of cache, as we have discussed before. Okay, so this is a 5-stage pipeline. This is a basic processor pipeline. Not all processor is going to have only 5 stages, but there are multiple stages, but I have been just giving you for an example. Okay, not all processor is going to have all 5 stages only. And here in this basic processor pipeline, we are considering a at max of 1 cycle per stage. So each stage have to complete its work in 1 cycle only. Okay, so in 5 clock cycles, whatever the operation, either it may be a load or a store, it have to be completed in all these 5 cycles. So it may be an ALU operation. Even for an ALU operation, you have to get some data or an instruction from the memory, right? And again, you have to store the data either in the processor, in the processor register, or processor's register, or you can store it in the memory as well. Okay, so coming to the cache memory concepts. So cache memory is like a buffer. It's like a buffer between a main memory and the processor. Okay. Initially, we have the memory systems which are very slow than the processor speed. So we have introduced these caches between the processor and the main memory. They acts like a buffer, and the main working principle is whatever the old data that is been in the cache will be deleted, by giving which is again giving the space to the new data. It have to give space to the new data, right? So the old data will be removed. Okay, so now coming to the hierarchical memory paths, as I have told before, the memories are being kept in a hierarchical path. Like for example, whatever the fast and small memories are kept very nearer to the processor, and the large and relatively slow memories are being kept farther to the processor. So as you are seeing in this slide, we have the CPU with internal registers, which is of size 1000 bytes, and the speed is of 300 picoseconds. And we have an L1 level of, we can have multiple levels of caches. Okay, here it is showing 3 levels of caches: L1, L2, and L3. So for L1 cache, it is of 64 KB size with 1 nanosecond speed. When you take the L2 cache, it is of 256 KB size and 3 to 10 nanoseconds speed. When you take the L3 cache, it is of 2 to 4 MB size and 10 to 20 nanoseconds speed. So as I have told, all the small and very speed memories are being kept nearer to the register, and the large and slow memories are being kept farther to the CPU. Okay, so now coming into the getting into the cache memory. So the implementation of the memory of a computer as a hierarchy, as I have shown now. The cache memories are small fast buffers between the main memory and the processor. The old data is being deleted, making an entry to the new one. So all these points have been discussed now. So we are going to keep the smaller and faster memories close to the processor, and the slower and larger memories below that. Okay. So guys, there are even now there have been some research been going on these memory systems. Okay, and these cache memory concepts are going to help the graduate level people as well as the master level people as well, who are interested in getting into the computer architecture, or who are working on computer architecture now, and I mean who wanted to work on these memory systems associated with the processor. So from early 1980s, as I've told now, the the processor versus memory graph is going to be like this. When you see a processor's performance, it was gradually increasing. When you consider the memory, it was not so good, but it was not so bad, but it's fine. There were some improvements in the memories as well, but always there is a gap that is associated, which is affecting the performance. So that is why we have to make sure that the memories that are associated with the processor have to be equally fast to process the data well that is required by the processor. So the cache memories are being built on the principle of locality of reference. So principle of locality of reference means the programs access a relatively small portion of their address space at any instant of time. So we have two types in it. One is the temporal locality and then the spatial locality. So coming to the temporal locality, if an item is referenced, it will tend to be referenced again soon. And coming to the spatial locality, if an item is referenced, the items whose addresses are close by will tend to be referenced soon. Okay, so we will see that now. So you have a processor, you have a core. So for time being, we'll just have only one level of cache. Okay, and you have a RAM. Okay, so for example, now the processor needs some data, uh, data some data. Now it checks for the data in the L1 cache. Okay, if the L1 cache is not having that particular data, it again goes to the next level of data, which is the RAM, and it checks for the data. Okay, so now if the data is present in the RAM, it is going to get that data to back to the L1. So now the L1 is going to provide that particular data required by the core back to the processor. So here, whatever the data that is being brought to the L1 cache is going to be referenced soon in near future. For example, when first time the core is referencing the data at time t, now it is said to be that this particular data is going to be referenced again in t plus delta t. So this is what the principle of this is the first point. The temporal locality, what it means is, if an item is referenced, it will be tend to be referenced again soon. So we have, so whatever the L1 cache is getting the data, so it is being said that that particular data will be referenced soon again, the second time or third time, how many times it may be, that will be referenced again in future. Okay, so for example, I will have an example now. For example, when you consider a word Mississippi, so when you consider this I, this particular I, when you brought this I to the cache, so what are you seeing in this word? You are again seeing it for the second time here, for the third time, for the fourth time. So this is what the cache is going to make sure. Since this particular word I is going to be referenced soon, this is brought to the L1 cache. Okay, this is what the temporal locality means. So coming to the spatial locality, in this, so let's consider the same example, the data example. Okay, So whatever the data that is required by the processor is uh, is being bought from the RAM to the L1 cache. Okay, along with that particular data, so consider the data is here somewhere here. So while getting this particular data, we are also getting the data that is around this particular data as well. Okay, so for example, in the RAM you have this one data 1. Okay, yeah, so you have 1. Now we are also not only bringing this 1 alone, but along with that we are bringing some blocks of data, like we are bringing this 0, whatever the data that is nearer to this particular 1, we are also bringing that as well. Okay, so all these data are also bought along with this 1 to the L1 cache, saying that all these data are also going to be referenced in the near future. So considering the same example, you are going to reference the word yes now, and again you are going to reference it in the near future, right? So along with I, you are going to bring the s as well, so that making sure that these both are again going to be referenced again soon in the near future. Okay, so this is what the spatial locality means. If an item is referenced, the items whose addresses are close by will be tend to be referenced soon. So along with this particular one, the addresses whose are nearby are also brought to the cache, knowing, like having an idea that they are also going to be referenced by the processor in the near future. Okay, so this is what the concepts on which the cache memories are being built. Okay, now coming to the cache fundamentals, let's say the block of cache now. Okay, so you have a cache block. So always cache is an array of sets. Okay, so it is an array of sets. So you will have multiple sets in the cache. You are going to have multiple sets in the cache. Like for example, this is set 0, this is set 1, and this is set 2. Okay, so all these sets are always multiple of 2, 2 power s. Okay, so each set is going to have a valid bit, a tag bits, some tag bits, and the data. Okay, so as I told, these sets are all 2 power, all are 2 powers, 2 power. It may be 2 power 1, 2 power 2, 2 power 3, 2 power 5. All are of 2 powers. The data blocks are also 2 powers. Okay, and each set. So where I have told this set right. So this set can have number of lines of the same. So in this one set, you can have number of lines or number of blocks of data, and each line is going to have a valid bit, some tag bits, and the data bits. Okay, so I'll repeat it. Each set is going to have either one or more than one number of lines or blocks of data, and each line is going to have one valid bit and some tag bits and some data bits. Okay, so these sets are 2 powers, to all the sets are of 2 powers, and all the lines are also 2 powers. All the blocks of data will also be of 2 power only. Okay, so coming to the first fundamental, the block or a line, which I have shown now, which is a minimum unit of information that can be either present or not present in the cache level. Coming to the hit rate or miss rate or miss penalty. Okay, so okay, we'll have a new slide. So for example, you have a processor, the core, we have an L1 memory, we have a main memory RAM. Okay, now your code is requesting some data, some instruction or some data 1 from the L1 cache. Now this particular one is not present in the L1 cache, but it is present in the RAM, the next level of memory. Okay, since this is not present in L1, this is called a cache miss. Okay, this is called a cache miss. And if this particular one is present in L1, that is called cache hit. Okay, so an access where the data requested by the processor is present in the cache, and miss is where an access where the data requested by the processor is not present in the cache. So coming to the hit time, so when there is a cache hit, that particular data will be retrieved by the processor from the processor, right? So this particular time from finding it and then getting it back to the processor is called hit time. Okay, so the time to access the cache memory cache memory block and then return the data to the processor is called hit time. Coming to the hit rate or miss rate, so for example, you have some 100 instructions. Among these 100 instructions, there are 80 instructions, 80 hits and 20 misses. So from this you can easily find the fraction, right? The fraction of hits and the fraction of misses. So that is what called the hit rate or miss rate. The fraction of memory access found or not found in the cache. Coming to the miss penalty, time to replace a block in the cache with the corresponding block from the next level of memory. So as we saw here, when there is a cache miss, we are going to the next level of memory to get that particular data. So the time when you have a cache miss and going to the next level of memory and bringing back to the L1 cache, so this particular time is known as the miss penalty. So the time to replace a block in the cache with the corresponding block from the next level of memory. So why are we having the term replacing in the sense? Because always the L1 cache may not be empty or it may not be full. So when it is full, you have to replace some block of data to have the data that you require, right? So you have to replace with the data that you require. So that is where the replacement comes. Though we are going to, I'll be telling you in the next slide about this. So you have got some idea of the cache fundamentals, right? So we'll be going to the next slide. So the CPU cache communication, organization of cache, and cache addressing and cache size. Okay, so coming to the CPU cache communication, always okay, for example, when you see when you go and see inside your my computer, when you right click and have the properties, the computer properties, you are going to see the your processor data address with, it can be a 32-bit or a 64-bit, right? So suppose considering your processor is of 32-bit, it is a 32-bit processor. So now with respect to this processor, one word is going to be 32-bit wide. Okay, when it is a 64-bit processor, one word will be 64-bit wide. Okay, so for time being we are considering the 32-bit processor, which where one word is 32-bit wide. Okay, always your data that is being communicated between the L1 cache, the L1 cache and the processor will be in terms of words. Okay, always they are in terms of words, while the data being communicated between the main memory and the cache are in terms of blocks. Okay, so always the blocks of data is being brought from RAM to the cache, and those blocks are communicated to the processor in terms of words. Okay, as I have told, one word is 32-bit wide here. So coming to the cache addressing, and cache size. So as we have discussed now, what is the first part that you have to address in the cache when you wanted to enter this set, right? As I have told, the cache is an array of sets. When you get into a set, you'll have number of lines, and from that number of lines you have to take whichever line, whichever blocks of data from the corresponding line. So we'll have that picture here now. Suppose you have a set, you have a set 0 which is having two lines. So one line will have one valid bit and a number of tag bits and some data bits. Okay, in the same way you have another line in the set 0, the valid bit, it has a tag bit and a data bits. So now whenever you get some virtual address, for example you have an address A given by the processor. Now this address is going to be divided into three parts. One is the tag bits, the set number and the offset. Okay, so now when you enter into a processor, what you require, the set number, right? So now the set number is being taken from this part. For example, consider the value of the set is 0. Now it goes to the set 0. Now the tag is being compared with both the tags. Since the set is having two lines here, which is having two tags each, one tag each. Now this tag from the address is going to be compared with these two tags parallelly. So note the point, the tag comparison is not going to be one by one, that is being compared parallelly. Okay, now when there is a tag comparison hit, for example your tag comparison being hit with this tag. Okay, now when the tag comparison is hit and your valid bit is high, the offset, consider your offset value is some 5 and you have some data around 0 to 9. Okay, so when you have data from 0 to 9 and your offset value is 5, so from 5 to 9 all these, so 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9, so all these 5 blocks of data are being addressed by the processor with the address A. So you got it right. So the address given by the processor is A. From this address, first we are going to find out the set number. From the set number, when you get into a set, you have to compare the tag with the all the tags that are there in the set and check for the valid bit to be 1. And when these two are done, we are going to get the offset. Now from the offset you are going to get the all particular data from there to the LSB. Okay, from that particular number to the LSB, you are going to read all the particular words of data. Okay, so this is how data communication happens, the cache addressing happens between the processor and the cache. Okay, now coming to the cache size, how are you going to calculate the cache size? So have a basic, like when we go into basic, don't need of any complex solutions, just consider a basic thing. So what is the cache is going to have? The sets and the number of lines, number of blocks, right? So this is how you are going to get the cache size, right? So you don't need any complex complex formula deductions or complex formula. You're not going to do something, some sort of any calculations to get the formula here. It's just a basic thing, number of sets, and each set is having number of lines, and number of lines, and each line is going to have number of blocks. So by this calculation you're going to get all the cache size. So from this cache size you're going to come to know the number of blocks that are present in the particular cache. Okay, so guys, we'll be doing some problems as well in the later future. Okay, this lecture is going to be my introduction video on the cache memories and how are they brought into existence, and why are we using cache memories, and on what principle they have been built up. Okay, this is what I wanted to discuss in this lecture. So later we will be discussing some problems as well, so that you will get an idea, and you will all these concepts will be stick to your mind. Okay, so don't worry about that, and if you have any doubts on the any concept, you can directly message me or you can comment in the comment section. So coming to the cache design concepts, the cache is being designed in various ways. First one is the block identification, the block placement, block replacement, and the write strategy. So coming to the block identification, whenever your processor requires some data, it may or may not be in the L1 cache, right? And it may not be in the next level of cache. It may be in some main memory. It may or may not be, right? It may be here, or it may be here, or it may be here. Okay, so all these memories are being mapped to each other. Okay, so this is one concept on which the memory, the cache is being designed. This is where the block identification comes into picture. And coming to block placement, whenever you get some data from this RAM, from the next level of memory, as we have seen before, whenever you are getting it to some this level, or getting into some, okay, just remove this particular level of cache, and you have only one level of cache, and you are bringing some sort of data, some kind of data to the L1 cache, and where you have to put it in this cache now, you simply can't put it here or here. You have some protocols to follow. So this is where the block placement comes. And coming to the block replacement, as I have told before, if the L1 cache is all full, so you have to replace some block of data with the data that you require. Okay, this is where the block replacement comes. And coming to the write strategy, so in case of these are all in case of read, but when the core wants to write something, so what happens in that particular situation is going to be covered under the write strategy. Okay, so these are all the design concepts: the block identification, block placement, block replacement, and write strategy. So yeah, so I hope that you people have understood all the concepts of the cache memories. I just wanted to make sure that the outline is being perfectly told to you, so that you won't be having any doubts in the future lectures. So what is meant by set, or what is meant by a block, what is meant by tag, what are the levels of caches. You should not have any confusion on that. Okay, so have all these basic concepts in your mind. Okay, so what how the cache is being evolved, what is the need of cache first of all. So without cache what happens, in with cache what happens, and how the cache is being how the cache communicates with the RAM, and how the cache communicates with the processor. So we are going to discuss all these concepts in the later videos. And as of now, please have all these concepts which have been explained now in your mind, so that you should not have any confusion in the later lectures. Okay, so I have been explaining you with examples and with pictures as well, so that it will be stick to your mind. Okay, so yeah, whenever you're working on some problems like cache memories, you should get that cache memory picture into your mind, so that you will be solving the problem very easily without using any formulas also. So not all problems require the formulas, and not all problems can be solved using some ideas without formulas. So it's not like that. So but where you should have some all the concepts in your mind that require to solve the problem. Okay, so that is what my intention is. Yeah, so thanks guys, and thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.